It's safe to say I didn't wholly enjoy the original Hello Neighbor when it released on the Nintendo Switch about 4 months ago. It felt like a great concept in someone's head, who then proceeded to scribble it out in crayons. The bad performance and visual fidelity was also a major stumbling block for me. Released on Friday, here we have the prequel to the original game, subtitled Hide and Seek. I'm Jordan from SwitchWatch, and we're going to find out if this one is any better. If you're new here, then don't forget to click that subscribe button for awesome Nintendo Switch content. The story for Hide and Seek is an intriguing one. There was a whole lot of speculation and discussion in the original game concerning the peculiar neighbor whose home you were trying to invade. What was he up to, and what were his motivations? I'd advise that if you're interested in playing the original at all, you skip ahead a minute or two because this story is pretty much spoiler stuff for the original. This is basically the build up to the original game as you play as Maya, the neighbor's daughter, and her brother Aaron as they play a game of hide and seek with oodles of imagination. As the story develops, you see this once happy loving family almost disintegrate due to circumstances that will become clear. It adds a lot of sympathy to the neighbor character, but it also takes a lot away from the menace that he provided. Sure, knowing the bad guy's motivations is supposed to add layers to the character, but when you make your bad guy not a bad guy really, you sort of negate your own original game. Not a great loss considering my thoughts on the original, but it is what it is. There's also a lot of room for interpretation, I would say. There is no spoken dialogue here aside from some grunts between characters, but nothing that explicably tells you what's going on. You get that, or at least try to, from the visuals alone.
Pew pew pew.
Instead of trying to infiltrate a house, this time you and your brother are playing a game of hide and seek, as with the subtitle of the game. Inside the imagination of the siblings, you enter a fantasy world where you have to collect things from the environment and drop them off at a goal. For example, the first stage is set in a wilderness where animal toys are scattered in all manner of weird locations, and you need to assemble them together in a large basket. Each stage is very large and there are plenty of mini puzzles situated within. There is little to no guidance here, just like the original, and so you are left completely up to your own devices to figure everything out. This does not hold your hand, and as the solutions are less ludicrous than the original, it's actually pretty satisfying doing it by yourself. One issue I had was that there was no indicator of how many I needed to get or how many I currently had, which made the last few collections always a bit of a pain. I know the game is trying its best not to hold your hand at all, which I can somewhat appreciate, but this was a frustrating aspect for sure. Despite being a first-person game, there's probably just a bit too much physics-based predicaments as well as completely dodgy platforming that the game just isn't equipped for, yet tasks you with it time and time again. Having to scale a rock face by glitching your way up almost isn't fun, especially when the physics just keep you wanting to bounce off or around things or just slide across walls, and don't get me started on jumping on thin platforms. These are not the game's strengths at all, but it still wants you to keep doing them. While items are important in this one, unlike previously, not everything is viable to use. There are far fewer opportunities to use everyday items for, which I'm somewhat glad, although finding that one specific item can be a bit of a pain. This was especially the case in the fire level where I couldn't really do anything until I found one specific thing. At least that's what I assume. Again, you can only hold 4 items at a time, which is actually nicely limiting, and you often have to make a sacrifice choice of what to leave behind if you're trying to pick up multiple of the goal items at once. Just like the original game, the biggest detriment to the whole experience is the stalker. Yes, the thing the whole game is built around. Your little brother, the one doing the seeking, is exceedingly annoying on all fronts and doesn't do anything to enhance the experience. This isn't me being salty about being caught all the time, it's the fact that the mechanic here is just so utterly shallow. You'll be seen miles off and he'll chase you miles more until he inevitably grabs you and puts you back at the beginning of the stage. If you're caught too many times, you're hindered by him by taking one of your targets away from you and putting it back to where you found it or somewhere secret. Which one? Who knows? At this point, you'll find yourself spending more times in the bushes or safe places that litter the area where he can't touch you, literally waiting minutes for him to bugger off elsewhere. As I'm writing this section, I'm doing just that. Sat in a bush, waiting for him to move on. It doesn't help matters that as soon as you pop your head out, he'll use his omnipotent powers to instantly see you again. It's just a chore. The puzzle aspects of the stages themselves are fine, and I'd probably enjoy all the environmental challenges and deduction if the little brother character wasn't there. It's not scary in the slightest. It's better than the original game for sure, but it's still more annoying than anything else because as I'm still writing this script, I'm now in another bush waiting for him to go away. After you manage to toil your way through the first stage, you'll be greeted by a nice change of theme. Instead of the wildlands, you're now in a cops and robbers heist-like area. This is where you'll certainly perk up and then realize that each of the 5 stages has a different theme to them. I was actually interested in this aspect as it left me wondering what the next theme would be if I completed this one. That alone gave me enough incentive to keep playing even though I wasn't exactly enjoying myself. In this cops and robbers area, you'll be nabbing money bags in place of the stuffed toys, but it's basically the same concept. And in the next stages, you'll be doing something very similar in the blazing town and the wintry area with their own little gimmicks, but pretty much the same sort of gameplay. Each stage will take you about an hour or so depending on how stuck you get. Some are better than others for sure, and that is usually decided by the amount of platforming and the annoying levels of the little brother. That's why my favourite was the cops and robbers stage, as neither of these things were overbearing in comparison to the fire stage, which both are turned up to 11. I think what I want to say is that it's better than the original game, at least in my opinion. The different themes and environment puzzles are far more interesting and thought-provoking, even if you're still baffled by some of the solutions. Again, a guide may be required to stop you from giving up. I think the game starts bad as the first stage was my least favourite of the lot thanks to the brother wandering around aimlessly and never leaving the location that you actually want to go to. Visually, the game is still the same as it was before, what with the reusing of most of the assets from the original game. So you've still got that surreal yet simplistic art style. It looks much better here though, thanks to the lower lighting that masks how cheap and simple it really is. In the original, the stages were a garish nightmare on the eyes thanks to the blaring, all-encompassing light. Things are dimmer and more nuanced here, which really helps a lot. The variety in areas also helps too. You'll be changing from the noir style to a blazing town to a wintry set. Despite the hour or so length for each stage, you'll be seeing different things fairly often, so that is a good point. The performance also seems to be better, and I didn't notice any problems in that department either, which is something I'm surprised about. The audio is okay. I honestly can't say I noticed it a whole lot aside from the danger music that plays when your brother is nearby, which is pretty much the entire time. I think that this is a missed opportunity for lots of nice themed tunes to each of the areas. I can only imagine an awesome noir soundtrack to the cops and robbers theme, but instead it's mostly just, silence. I'm sure this is a stylistic choice from the developer, but I think it's a poor one. It just screams a lack of budget to me, which, considering the success of the original game, shouldn't be the case. For value, Hello Neighbor Hide and Seek is £26.99 on the UK eShop and $29.99 in the US. It's a notch cheaper than the original and is certainly heading in the right direction, although it still needed to be cheaper. I don't think the production value merits the price. It looks and feels like an early access game rather than a finished product. Knock off another £10 or dollars and I'd concede you get your bang for your buck. It's better than the first, but I'd still wait for a sale on this one. If you are insisting on getting it, then there's also a physical copy available. If you want to buy it, then consider buying it in our Amazon shop in the link below. That just helps us out a lot and at no extra cost to you guys, so please consider that. Overall, Hello Neighbor Hide and Seek is a better game than the original for sure. It's more interesting, but still has the stalker mechanic that does nothing but get in the way and annoy. That is its purpose, but it goes overboard. I like the different themes and the environmental puzzles are more rewarding this time. That doesn't make it a good game though, and you can't shake that feeling of an early access vibe that the game gives. Visually, it's better too, no thanks to the better settings, but I still found it difficult to get enjoyment out of it. Despite brief enjoyments here and there, I'd say this one is a 6 out of 10. It's a bit better than the original, but not quite good. Next up is our review of the original game, where you can see the slight improvements on this entry, so go check that out and I'll see you guys over there. Take care.